Most people think they know Virginia gun laws. They know one rule. Then they accidentally walk into that one situation where that rule stops working. That's where people get burned. Because in Virginia, the gun usually isn't the problem. The setup is. And in 2026, several of those setups changed. Before we're done, I'll show you the Virginia carry trap most people don't ever see coming. To begin with, Virginia is not a permitless concealed carry state. If you want to carry a concealed handgun in public, you generally need a Virginia concealed handgun permit or a permit Virginia recognizes from another state. That matters because Virginia separates what people often mix together: open carry, concealed carry, vehicle storage, and buying. Do not mix those together. That's how people get cooked. For concealed carry, the age number to remember is 21. Virginia's resident concealed handgun permit is for people 21 and older. And if you are relying on an out-of-state permit, Virginia's reciprocity rule also looks for a permit holder who is at least 21. But age is only one part of reciprocity. Do not treat Virginia reciprocity like it is frozen forever. Recognized permits can change. So if you are relying on another state's permit, check the current Virginia State Police reciprocity list before you carry. If you are carrying concealed under that permit, do not just have it at home, have it on you with photo ID, because law enforcement can demand to see both. So if somebody is 18, 19, or 20, do not casually tell them, "You're good to carry concealed in Virginia." That is not the normal permit lane. In Virginia, concealed carry is the most likely to trip up normal people, because the moment the gun is hidden, the permit lane, location rules, and vehicle rules all start mattering at the same time. Virginia generally allows open carry for people who can legally possess the firearm, but generally is doing a lot of work there. Open carry does not mean every setup is automatically legal. And that matters more in 2026 because the type of firearm can change the answer. Starting July 1st, 2027, Virginia's public carry rule will change for certain semi-auto rifles, shotguns, magazine capacity setups, and modified firearms. So, open carry is legal does not mean every firearm is legal to carry around in public. Buying has its own age trap, but we'll get to that soon. Now, let's look at where legal carry suddenly stops working. Virginia's prohibited place problem is not just about obvious places. It is about normal errands that become legal problems because the location changes. Schools are one of the biggest traps. The building is the obvious part. The parking lot is where parents get confused. Virginia restricts firearms on K-12 school property, including school buildings, school grounds, school buses, and certain school functions. It also reaches child daycare centers and preschools. But there are vehicle exceptions. A concealed handgun permit holder can have a concealed handgun while inside a motor vehicle in a school parking lot, traffic circle, or other vehicle pickup and drop-off areas. There are also non-CHL exceptions for an unloaded firearm in a closed container inside the vehicle. Federal law adds another layer. The Gun-Free School Zone Act reaches school grounds and 1,000 feet around K-12 schools. The big exceptions are private property, a permit from Virginia, or an unloaded firearm in a locked container or locked vehicle rack. An out-of-state permit may not fix the federal rule. Public colleges are a separate 2026 problem. As of July 1st, Virginia narrows the public institution of higher education exemption, so a carry permit is not a magic key inside a public college building. Hospitals also changed July 1st. Virginia adds a weapon restriction for certain hospitals that provide mental health services or developmental services, including certain emergency care areas. So do not assume a hospital is just another private building. Airports create one of the most layered gun law mistakes in Virginia. Virginia generally makes it unlawful to possess or transport a firearm, ammunition, or certain weapons into an air carrier airport terminal. But that is not the same as flying legally with a firearm. Flying with a firearm is the checked baggage process. Unloaded, locked in a hard-sided case, declared to the airline, and handled through the airline's procedure. Outside the terminal, the same lanes still matter. If it is concealed on your body, you are in the concealed carry lane. If it is stored in a vehicle, keep it in the vehicle storage lane. Now, government buildings. Courthouses are a hard no. Virginia also restricts firearms in Capitol Square, certain Commonwealth-owned or leased buildings, and offices where state employees are regularly present. Post offices are their own federal problem. Postal rules say you cannot carry or store a gun on postal property, and that can include the parking lot.
We have a separate video breaking that down, linked above. Next come local rules. Virginia has state preemption, but local governments still have a narrow lane where they can restrict firearms in certain local government buildings, parks, recreation centers, community centers, and public streets or places tied to permitted events. Think Fairfax County, Arlington, and Richmond. The same sidewalk on a normal day may not be the same sidewalk when it becomes part of a permitted event zone. In an election year, remember this: starting July 1st, Virginia expands the firearm restriction around polling places and certain election locations to 100 feet. Places of worship have their own rule. Virginia law says no gun or dangerous weapon during a religious meeting without good and sufficient reason. A Virginia Attorney General opinion says personal protection can qualify, but the place of worship can still set its own policy. Now, alcohol and private property. Virginia does not make every restaurant that serves alcohol an automatic no-go for permit holders. But if you carry concealed in a restaurant or club licensed for on-premises alcohol service, do not drink there. And if you are under the influence while carrying concealed in public, that is illegal too. Virginia is not Texas with magic word gun signs. But do not treat signs like they are meaningless. Under Virginia trespass law, notice can come from a posted sign or from the owner telling you to leave. If you ignore the notice or refuse to leave, now the issue may become trespass. Now, quick question. When you see a no gun sign, what's your move? Comment conceal or disarm.
But before you walk inside, a lot of those problems start in the car. Virginia's vehicle rule sounds simple, but it gets misunderstood in its simplicity.
People mix up three different things: vehicle storage, concealed carry, and leaving the handgun behind. A person who can lawfully possess a firearm may have a handgun in a personal, private motor vehicle or vessel if the handgun is secured in a container or compartment. Under the normal vehicle rule, secured does not automatically mean locked. That matters for people who do not have a concealed handgun permit. But here's the trap. Car legal does not always mean carry legal. If the handgun is secured in the vehicle, you are in the vehicle storage lane. If it is hidden on your body, under your shirt, or inside a bag you are wearing, treat that as concealed carry territory, not vehicle storage. Once you leave the vehicle, the method changes. The car can give you a lawful storage option in certain prohibited building parking lots. And as of July 1st, 2026, Virginia added a separate rule for leaving a handgun in an unattended vehicle. If you leave a handgun in an unattended vehicle, it generally has to be placed out of plain view and secured in a locked hard-sided container, including a locked container affixed inside the vehicle, a locked glove compartment, or a locked center console. So throwing a handgun under a hoodie on the passenger's seat is not the plan. And if a firearm is lost or stolen, Virginia has a reporting rule too. Once you discover it is gone, the clock is short. Do not sit on it because the reporting window is 48 hours. Now imagine the red and blue lights come on behind you. That is where all these vehicle rules suddenly become real. Traffic stops. Virginia is not an immediate duty to inform state where you have to announce the gun the second the lights come on. But if you are carrying under a concealed handgun permit, you still need the permit and photo ID with you, and you need to show them when law enforcement demands them. If an officer asks whether there is a firearm in a vehicle, do not play word games. Keep your hands visible, move slowly, explain before reaching, and follow lawful commands. If the officer decides the firearm needs to be secured during the stop, do not make sudden moves and do not reach for it yourself. Keep your hands visible, state where it is, and wait for clear instructions before anything moves.
But even if you store it right, carry it right, and handle the stop right, none of that saves you if your legal status changed. If your status is bad, possession itself is the problem.
Virginia prohibits firearm possession for several categories of people, including people with felony convictions, certain juvenile adjudications, certain mental health commitments or orders, and people subject to active protective order or substantial risk order restrictions. For some prohibited categories, the problem is not just the firearm. Ammunition can be part of the problem too. And if your rights were restored, make sure that actually includes firearm rights. Restoring civil rights is not always the same thing as restoring gun rights. Virginia also has what people usually call a red flag law. The official term is substantial risk order, and once the order is active, firearm possession, purchase, or transportation can become illegal. Protective orders are where timing matters. In some protective order cases, Virginia gives a short window to surrender, sell, or transfer the firearm, then certify that it is done. So this is not an "I'll deal with it next week" situation. As of July 1st, 2026, Virginia tightens domestic violence firearm rules for offenses committed on or after that date. The intimate partner loophole closes. That means qualifying misdemeanor assault and battery convictions involving intimate partners can trigger firearm restrictions. Virginia law also has a transfer process for people prohibited because of protective order or qualifying assault and battery conviction. And the 2026 update tightened who can receive the firearm. If the firearm is transferred to another person, that person has to be legally allowed to possess it, be 21 or older, and not live with the prohibited person. They think a misdemeanor is minor. They think handing the gun to a relative fixes it. They think keeping it in the house is fine because it's not really theirs anymore. That is not how you want to test the law, especially after Virginia's 2026 home storage rule. If you know a minor or prohibited person is present in the residence, the firearm generally needs to be locked away or disabled with an appropriate gun lock.
If your status is clean, the next trap is how the gun changes hands. The real danger is the shortcut, the favor, the private sale, or the assumption that Virginia works like the other state next door.
At a licensed dealer, Virginia uses the state police firearms transaction system. The dealer runs the required background check before the firearm is transferred. The check can come back approved, delayed, or denied. Approved means the transfer can move forward. Delayed means the system needs more time. Denied means the transfer does not go through. And if you believe the denial is wrong, there is a challenge process. A delay is not the same thing as a denial. Federal law has a 3 business day default proceed rule, but Virginia has its own 5th business day fallback if state police says a response will not be available in time. So do not treat 3 days or 5 days like a guaranteed pickup date. Dealer policy and other federal rules can still matter. Under federal dealer rules, handguns and handgun ammunition are generally 21 and up. Rifles and shotguns are generally 18 and up. If you are under 21, knowingly and intentionally buying a handgun or listed firearm can be a Class 1 misdemeanor. And for buyers under 21, federal law can add another layer. If NICS and ICS needs more time to check possible juvenile disqualifiers, that delay can stretch up to 10 business days. Virginia also has a 1 handgun per 30-day rule. If you are not a licensed dealer, Virginia generally does not let you buy more than 1 handgun within 30 days unless an exception applies. A valid Virginia CHP is one of the big exceptions. Now private sales. This is where old advice can burn you. For a while, Virginia's private sale background check law was tied up in the Lynchburg court fight. But starting July 1st, 2026, private sale background checks are back in Virginia. For a paid private sale, the seller generally needs a licensed dealer background check verification, unless an exception applies. So do not trust an old forum post, a gun show story, or what somebody did last year. And background check or not, you still cannot knowingly sell or give a gun to a prohibited person, use a fake buyer, or turn a favor into a straw purchase. One more 2026 transaction note. Virginia changed the buying, selling, transfer, import, and manufacturing rules for certain restricted firearms and feeding devices over 15 rounds. That is a handoff issue, not just a possession issue. Virginia also signed a ghost gun law in 2026, but the clock starts in stages. Most unfinished frame and unserialized firearm rules begin January 1st, 2027. The possession piece begins July 1st, 2027.
Virginia has a lot going on, but responsible daily carriers still want the same thing: comfort, stability, and concealment that works in real life. That is why Relax Fit Tactical exists. Jane's going to show you how we make everyday carry easier to actually live with.
Hey, if you made it this far, you probably care about doing things right. If you've tried carrying in gym shorts or sweats, it just never feels quite right. Waistband moves, holster shifts, it's fine, but it's not dialed. That is why we built Relaxed Fit Tactical. Our shorts lock onto an inner belt, so your holster clips to a hidden belt, not just fabric. Same setup, same draw, just more comfortable. So if you carry every day, this just makes sense. Links below.